November 22, 1922, Gosport, Indiana. A child was born into a world that would soon be consumed by economic collapse and global war. Eugene Morrison Stoner entered life with nothing but his name. In a small farming town where most families struggled through the Great Depression, nobody could have predicted that this boy, who would never attend college, who would spend his early years installing aircraft parts in California factories, would one day design the most controversial and widely used military rifle in modern history? He wasn't raised in privilege. He wasn't groomed for genius. He didn't come from a dynasty of engineers or generals. His education was dirt roads, diesel smoke, and the mechanical truth of survival. Things either worked or they broke. He learned by breaking things first. While his peers clocked out and went home to dinner, Stoner stayed behind, tinkering, sketching, studying the physics of recoil and pressure, as if it were a second language he was born already knowing. The pencil moved across paper as the young machinist sketched modifications to weapons he had never been formally trained to build. In the glow of a single lamp, in a garage too small for anything except ambition, he was rewriting a century of battlefield thinking without even realizing it. Working late nights in his Long Beach garage after shifts at Vega Aircraft Company, Stoner was trying to solve a problem that had frustrated military designers for decades. How do you build a rifle that is light enough for a soldier to run with, accurate enough to matter, powerful enough to win a fight, and reliable enough not to die with him? According to every expert in the firearms industry, according to the United States Army Ordnance Corps, according to traditions stretching back to the American Civil War, the answer was simple. You don't. It couldn't be done. By the late 1940s, Eugene Stoner was no longer just a garage tinkerer. He was a machinist at Armalite, a small weapons company with ambitions bigger than its resources. His life in Long Beach had taught him one fundamental rule. If you wanted something done right, you had to do it yourself. Armed with that conviction, Stoner began translating the sketches and mechanical doodles of his youth into functional prototypes. The problem was monumental. Traditional rifles were heavy, clunky, and often prone to jamming. Soldiers carried them through mud, sand, rain, and freezing snow, and yet the guns often failed at the moment they were needed most. Stoner approached the challenge differently. He didn't want to simply improve a rifle. He wanted to reinvent it from the inside out. He experimented with new materials, borrowing aluminum and lightweight alloys from the aircraft industry, metals that were strong, yet far lighter than steel. He combined them with high-capacity detachable magazines, a revolutionary concept for the time, and a gas-operated system designed to harness the rifle's own energy to cycle rounds automatically. This wasn't just theory. Every line he drew, every mechanism he built, he tested tirelessly in workshops, firing range after firing range, often with colleagues shaking their heads at his unconventional methods. Failures were constant. Springs broke, bolts froze, barrels warped. But Stoner persisted, iterating on his designs day after day. The rifle he envisioned had to survive jungle humidity, desert heat, Arctic cold, and still function flawlessly. It had to be lightweight enough for a soldier to carry dozens of rounds on long patrols, yet precise enough to hit targets at 500 yards. Every prototype taught him something new, sometimes in brutal ways. Exploded casings, shattered parts, burned hands. But with each failure, he adjusted, redesigned, and improved. His colleagues at Armalite often whispered that Stoner was chasing the impossible. The Ordnance Corps even labeled some of his ideas as unmakeable or impractical for mass production. But Stoner didn't care about tradition or politics or skepticism. He cared about performance, and he cared about soldiers. In every sketch, in every test, he imagined a soldier in a faraway jungle, in the rain or under blazing sun, relying on his rifle to stay alive. That vision became his obsession. By 1955, the first true prototype of what would eventually become the AR-15 emerged. It was lighter than anything the U.S. military had seen, yet built to fire rapidly and reliably. The weapon was modular, its parts simple to replace, and its gas-operated design allowed soldiers to fire without cumbersome manual cycling. Even in the hands of someone untrained, the rifle would function. Stoner had turned decades of assumed limitations on their head. The challenge, however, was just beginning. Getting the military to adopt it would require patience, persistence, and political skill. But by now, the foundation was laid. Eugene Stoner had not only imagined a new kind of rifle, he had built a new paradigm for modern warfare, a weapon that would redefine infantry combat for generations to come. By the mid-1950s, Eugene Stoner had become a force of quiet revolution in the world of firearms design. At Armalite, his relentless drive and visionary ideas were beginning to clash with the constraints of a small company. The prototype rifle he had spent years perfecting, initially known simply as the Armalite rifle, Model 15, or AR-15, was unlike anything the military had ever tested. Its lightweight aluminum receiver, gas-operated action, and high-capacity magazine made it fast, reliable, and deadly. But these qualities also made many in the Army Ordnance Corps skeptical. Every test brought new scrutiny. Inspectors questioned whether aluminum could endure prolonged combat, whether soldiers could maintain it under field conditions, whether the rifle could truly outperform established designs like the M14 or M1 Garand. Stoner, however, was unconcerned with doubts. He approached each critique as a problem to be solved rather than a barrier. Using his background in aircraft engineering, he adjusted tolerances, reinforced critical components, and demonstrated repeatedly that the rifle could function in mud, dust, rain, and extreme heat without faltering. Meanwhile, Armalite struggled to keep pace with Stoner's innovations. The company had limited manufacturing capability, and producing the rifle at scale was a challenge that required meticulous planning and coordination. Stoner worked closely with engineers, machinists, and test shooters, often staying late into the night, personally overseeing each iteration of the design. He refined the bolt carrier group, experimented with barrel profiles, and improved ergonomics so that soldiers could carry, aim, and fire the weapon efficiently, even under stress. Despite these efforts, adoption was not immediate. Military bureaucracies moved slowly, bound by tradition and cautious to embrace untested technologies. But Stoner's persistence began to pay off. By the late 1950s, the AR-15 had drawn attention not only for its performance, but also for its revolutionary concept. A lightweight, modular rifle that allowed troops to carry more ammunition without fatigue, fire accurately at longer ranges, and maintain the weapon with minimal training. Stoner also championed innovations that would become standard in modern infantry rifles. The rifle's detachable magazine allowed rapid reloads. The gas piston system reduced recoil and improved controllability during rapid fire. The aluminum receiver cut weight dramatically, enabling soldiers to move faster across difficult terrain. Even small features, like the placement of the charging handle and safety selector, were the result of careful observation and countless hours of trial and error. By the time Armalite was negotiating with Colt's manufacturing company for production rights, the AR-15 was no longer just a prototype. It represented a paradigm shift in infantry warfare. Stoner had turned decades of conventional thinking upside down, proving that a weapon could be simultaneously lightweight, powerful, and reliable. Yet even as the rifle moved closer to adoption, Stoner knew the real battle had only begun. Convincing military leaders, surviving political scrutiny, and ensuring that the rifle would reach the soldiers who needed it most. In garages, test ranges, and workshops across California, Eugene Stoner had done something remarkable. He had taken the impossible, a rifle deemed unmakeable by experts, and forged it into reality. What remained was to turn that reality into history. By 1957, Eugene Stoner's AR-15 prototype had reached a pivotal stage. The rifle existed not just on paper, not just in small-scale prototypes, but as a functioning weapon that could be held, aimed, and fired. Yet the military establishment remained unconvinced. Generals and ordnance officers, steeped in tradition and accustomed to the heavier battle-tested rifles like the M14, looked at Stoner's creation and saw only risk. Aluminum receivers? Light enough to carry easily, but would they bend or break in combat? Detachable magazines? Innovative, yes, but reliable under jungle mud or desert sand. And the gas-operated system? Radical, almost untested. Could it survive the harshest conditions soldiers might face? Stoner welcomed these doubts. Every critique became an opportunity to test, refine, and prove the naysayers wrong. At the Armalite testing ranges in California, he watched closely as soldiers, civilians, and engineers alike fired the rifle through relentless drills. Barrels heated to extremes, magazines loaded and unloaded dozens of times, mud and sand poured into mechanisms. The AR-15 continued to function flawlessly. Every malfunction, however rare, became a lesson. Stoner meticulously studied each flaw, adjusted tolerances, redesigned parts, and tested again. One evening, after hours of testing, Stoner sat alone with a disassembled rifle on his workbench. Sweat clung to his forehead, and his hands were black with oil and dirt. Around him lay spent cartridges, springs, and tools. He looked at the rifle not just as a weapon, but as a solution to decades of military failure. He thought about soldiers in jungles, deserts, mountains, young men whose lives depended on every shot they fired. Each test, each adjustment, was a promise that the rifle would not fail them. Colt's manufacturing company had agreed to produce the AR-15 on a limited scale, but Stoner's job was far from over. Mass production introduced new variables: machine tolerances, material inconsistencies, and human error on assembly lines. Stoner worked closely with Colt's engineers, often traveling to their facilities, walking the assembly lines, demonstrating his methods, and ensuring that quality standards were met. He was no longer just an inventor. He had become a guardian of his creation, defending it from the compromises that mass production often demanded. By 1958, the AR-15 had evolved from a controversial experiment into a proven design. It was light, accurate, reliable, and modular. A rifle that could be carried across long patrols, fired accurately under duress, and maintained with minimal training. Military trials began in earnest, pitting Stoner's rifle against traditional weapons in field conditions from Arctic cold to humid jungles. And each time, the AR-15 outperformed expectations, demonstrating that innovation, meticulous testing, and relentless attention to detail could overcome the skepticism of generations. Stoner understood that a weapon was more than mechanics. It was the culmination of vision, skill, and determination. The AR-15 was now ready to confront the most significant challenge yet, proving to a cautious military that the future of infantry combat had arrived, and that the rifle deemed unmakeable was about to change warfare forever. By the late 1950s, Eugene Stoner had proven that his AR-15 could work. It was lightweight, reliable, and deadly accurate, but creating a functioning rifle was only half the battle. The other half, the one that would decide whether the rifle reached soldiers on the front lines, was navigating the tangled web of military politics, bureaucratic resistance, and public skepticism. The Army and Air Force were cautious. They had spent decades relying on heavier rifles like the M14 and M1 Garand, weapons they trusted implicitly because they had seen them perform under fire. A new rifle, radically different in materials, operation, and design, required not just testing, but persuasion. Military leaders demanded exhaustive evaluations, repeated trials, and detailed reports on every conceivable scenario. Jungle humidity, desert heat, freezing temperatures, battlefield dirt, even the impact of repeated rapid fire on the weapon's internal mechanisms. Each trial was a potential obstacle, each report a battleground. Stoner, however, had learned long ago that persistence was the key to innovation. He traveled constantly, demonstrating the rifle personally to military boards, explaining its mechanisms, and showing how its modular design allowed for rapid maintenance and repairs. He answered every question with precision, backed by exhaustive data and field test results. He knew that skepticism could not be argued away with mere words. It had to be demonstrated in iron and steel, in dirt, mud, and sweat. Colt Manufacturing, which had taken over production rights from Armalite, also played a critical role. They invested in refining manufacturing processes, ensuring that each rifle leaving the factory maintained strict tolerances and consistent quality. Stoner worked alongside Colt engineers to oversee assembly, address emerging issues, and incorporate feedback from military trials. Every minor flaw corrected was a step closer to acceptance, every successful demonstration a nail in the coffin of doubt. Meanwhile, public perception was another factor. News of Stoner's unmakeable rifle began to leak into military journals and newspapers, painting a picture of a revolutionary weapon built by a self-taught engineer who defied conventional wisdom. This attention, while sometimes skeptical or dismissive, created momentum. The narrative shifted slowly. A small-town machinist from Indiana, working in a garage in Long Beach, had built a rifle that could outperform traditional designs while reducing weight, improving accuracy, and simplifying logistics for soldiers. By 1962, the culmination of years of effort bore fruit. The AR-15 passed final military evaluations, demonstrating reliability, durability, and battlefield versatility. It was ready for deployment, a weapon forged from decades of skepticism, late nights, endless testing, and Stoner's unshakable belief that the impossible could, in fact, be made possible. Eugene Stoner had not just created a rifle. He had redefined the concept of infantry weaponry. The AR-15 was light, powerful, modular, and reliable, qualities that would soon make it the standard for soldiers across the United States, and eventually, the world. It was a testament to ingenuity, determination, and the relentless pursuit of perfection against the odds. By the early 1960s, the AR-15 had moved beyond the testing grounds of California and the polished floors of Colt Manufacturing. The rifle was ready for its first real trial, combat deployment. Though the military had reluctantly accepted its unconventional design, The true proof of the AR-15's effectiveness would come in the unforgiving environments of war, where theoretical advantages faced the harshest realities. Vietnam was the crucible. Soldiers faced dense jungles, humid swamps, torrential rains, and blistering heat. They carried the AR-15 through ankle-deep mud, over rocky ridges, and into firefights that tested every aspect of a rifle's design. Early reports were astonishing. The weapon functioned flawlessly where older rifles jammed, misfired, or simply grew too heavy to carry efficiently. Soldiers praised its lightweight, high rate of fire, and the ease with which it could be maintained in the field. Even inexperienced troops could strip and clean it in minutes, a crucial factor in a war where downtime could mean death. Yet, deployment was not without its critics. Some traditionalists in the military argued that the rifle's smaller caliber would not have the stopping power of previous battle rifles. Others were skeptical of a weapon produced largely from aluminum and plastics, materials many associated with fragility. Stoner watched these debates from the sidelines, confident that the battlefield would ultimately answer all questions. He knew the rifle had been designed not to intimidate critics, but to save lives and ensure operational effectiveness. Field reports soon silenced dissent. Patrols equipped with the AR-15 consistently returned with higher accuracy and lower fatigue compared to units using heavier, older rifles. Soldiers could carry more ammunition without being overburdened, maintain rapid fire, and engage targets at ranges previously unattainable for an assault-style weapon of its weight. The modularity of the rifle allowed rapid modifications. Optics, grenade launchers, and other attachments could be added, turning it into a versatile platform capable of adapting to multiple mission profiles. Eugene Stoner's vision had always extended beyond the rifle itself. He imagined a weapon that could evolve alongside warfare, a tool that was not fixed by tradition, but adaptable to the soldier's needs. Vietnam became the proving ground for this philosophy. Reports of jams, failures, or malfunctions were exceptionally rare, and every issue that did arise was minor compared to the performance of conventional rifles in identical conditions. By 1965, the AR-15 had become a symbol of modern warfare, a testament to innovation overcoming skepticism. Engineers and soldiers alike began to recognize that the rifle represented more than just a weapon. It was a paradigm shift. Weight, reliability, modularity, and precision for all in one package. And all forged by a man who had never attended college, who had started in small garages, and who had faced every expert's skepticism head-on. Stoner watched as the rifle, once dismissed as impossible, began to save lives and change the expectations of what an infantry weapon could achieve. In jungles, mountains, and deserts, the AR-15 had proven that ingenuity, persistence, and uncompromising design could transform the battlefield. By the end of the module, it was clear the rifle was not just a machine. It was a revolution in the hands of soldiers, a story of human determination, and a symbol of the extraordinary vision of Eugene Stoner. As the AR-15 continued to prove itself in Vietnam, military strategists began to recognize that this was not just a new rifle. It was a weapon that could fundamentally change how infantry units fought. For decades, military doctrine had been shaped around heavy battle rifles like the M14, which demanded careful handling, limited ammunition loads, and relied on brute strength for extended patrols. Soldiers grew fatigued, and mobility often suffered. The AR-15 disrupted that tradition. Lightweight, reliable, and accurate, the rifle allowed small units to operate with unprecedented speed and flexibility. Soldiers could carry more ammunition, maneuver through dense jungle terrain, and maintain a higher rate of fire without tiring. Ambushes could be executed with precision and sustained suppression. Patrolling units could extend their range without sacrificing firepower. Every aspect of infantry engagement began to evolve because the rifle itself was no longer a limiting factor. Officers quickly took notice. Training manuals were rewritten, emphasizing marksmanship at a variety of ranges, rapid reloading drills, and maintenance in the field. The AR-15's modularity allowed for attachments such as grenade launchers and optics, creating new tactical possibilities. Platoons could adapt the weapon to the mission at hand, from close-quarters jungle combat to open-field engagements where accuracy at distance mattered. The rifle had become more than a tool. It was a force multiplier, reshaping strategy from the ground up. Stoner, ever meticulous, continued to refine his design based on feedback from the field. Soldiers' reports guided incremental improvements. Better sights, improved magazines, more resilient materials. He worked tirelessly with Colt engineers to ensure production lines could accommodate changes without disrupting supply. His vision of a constantly evolving, battlefield-ready weapon was becoming reality. Resistance to change remained, however. Some traditionalists argued that the army risked replacing proven rifles with untested technology. Others were concerned about the cultural shift required for soldiers to trust a lightweight aluminum rifle in combat. Yet, as casualty reports and mission outcomes demonstrated the AR-15's superiority, skepticism began to fade. Commanders recognized that the rifle's advantages in mobility, reliability, and adaptability could no longer be ignored. By 1967, the AR-15 had become the standard for most U.S. infantry units. Its impact extended beyond individual soldiers to entire squads and battalions. The rifle redefined engagement distances, fire team tactics, and the expectations of what a soldier could carry and accomplish on the battlefield. It was a living embodiment of Stoner's philosophy. Innovation born from necessity, tested in the field, and refined through practical experience. The AR-15 had proven that the limits of tradition could be overcome by ingenuity. It was no longer just Eugene Stoner's creation. It was a weapon that had reshaped combat doctrine, challenged the skeptics, and saved countless lives. The battlefield had embraced the impossible, turning what many called a mad idea into the future of infantry warfare. By the late 1960s, the AR-15 had transcended the battlefields of Vietnam and begun to influence military thinking worldwide. Its success was not limited to the jungles and rice paddies of Southeast Asia. Word of the rifle's reliability, lightweight, and adaptability spread across continents, capturing the attention of allies and potential adversaries alike. Soldiers and commanders around the world were witnessing a revolution in small arms design, and Eugene Stoner's creation had become a symbol of modern warfare innovation. Allied nations began studying the AR-15, recognizing that its design principles could shape the next generation of infantry weapons. Engineers and military officials marveled at the rifle's use of aluminum and high-strength plastics, which reduced weight without sacrificing durability. Its modular construction allowed field repairs that would have been impossible on heavier conventional rifles. The concept of a weapon that could evolve with the battlefield was no longer theoretical. It was operational. Meanwhile, adversaries took note. Competing nations examined captured or observed AR-15s to reverse engineer their design. The rifle's presence on the battlefield challenged conventional thinking about infantry engagements, forcing armies to reconsider tactics, training, and even logistics. Ammunition efficiency, rapid-fire capability, and ease of maintenance became central to small arms development programs worldwide. Eugene Stoner's invention was no longer just an American weapon. It had become a benchmark for modern military engineering. Back in the United States, the AR-15 continued to evolve. Feedback from soldiers in the field guided improvements in ergonomics, magazine reliability, and sighting systems. Stoner worked closely with Colt and the Army to ensure that production could keep pace with demand without sacrificing quality. Each iteration of the rifle maintained the core principles: light, reliable, versatile, and deadly accurate. These design choices ensured that the weapon remained effective in every environment, from the humid jungles of Vietnam to the deserts of the Middle East. The AR-15's influence extended beyond the military. Civilian versions began to emerge, capturing public fascination with the rifle's revolutionary design. While regulations limited military-style use, engineers and enthusiasts recognized the genius of Stoner's approach: a lightweight, modular firearm that could perform in extreme conditions. Discussions about its application in law enforcement, paramilitary units, and private security demonstrated the rifle's broad utility. Yet, despite its global reach, the essence of the AR-15 remained unchanged. It was a weapon born from necessity, honed by rigorous testing, and refined through real-world experience. Every patrol report, every soldier's testimonial, every battlefield success reinforced the idea that the impossible could indeed be achieved through innovation and determination. Stoner's vision had not only redefined American infantry warfare, but it also set the standard for firearms design worldwide. By the end of the decade, the AR-15 had cemented its place in military history. It had become more than a rifle. It was a symbol of ingenuity, adaptability, and the power of human determination. Eugene Stoner's creation had crossed oceans, influenced doctrines, and proved that even a single individual, working tirelessly in a garage, could change the course of warfare forever. By the early 1970s, the AR-15 had firmly established itself as the backbone of modern infantry. Soldiers relied on its lightweight construction, rapid-fire capability, and remarkable accuracy to carry out missions that would have been impossible with older, heavier rifles. Yet with its widespread adoption came a new challenge. The rifle had become a lightning rod for controversy, both within the military and among the general public. Critics questioned whether a weapon so light and fast could truly be considered effective in combat. Some generals and traditionalists argued that the smaller caliber rounds could not provide sufficient stopping power, citing conventional wisdom from previous wars. Others worried about the implications of giving soldiers a rifle that could be modified with so many attachments, fearing it could fall into the wrong hands. Despite these objections, field reports from Vietnam and other deployments consistently proved the AR-15's effectiveness. Its combination of mobility, precision, and adaptability outweighed the concerns of skeptics. The controversy extended beyond the battlefield. As civilian versions of the AR-15 began to appear in the United States, debates ignited over gun ownership, regulation, and the role of military-style firearms in society. Politicians, journalists, and advocacy groups argued fiercely about the rifle's place in civilian life, often overlooking the fact that its design had been forged in the crucible of war. Eugene Stoner, who had once sketched ideas in a garage in Long Beach, found himself at the center of a cultural and political storm he had never anticipated. Despite these debates, the AR-15's legacy in the military could not be denied. Soldiers credited the rifle with saving lives, allowing small units to move faster, fight longer, and engage enemies more effectively. Its modularity allowed for quick adaptations in diverse combat environments: jungles, deserts, mountains, and urban terrain. From elite special operations teams to regular infantry, the AR-15 became synonymous with modern American combat capability. Beyond its practical applications, the rifle symbolized innovation in the face of skepticism. Stoner's work demonstrated that traditional approaches could be challenged, and that ingenuity, persistence, and a willingness to embrace unconventional ideas could transform entire institutions. The AR-15 was more than a weapon. It was proof that one individual, armed with vision and determination, could change the rules of warfare forever. By the end of this era, the AR-15 had become both celebrated and criticized, admired and feared. Its impact on military strategy, training, and tactics would be felt for decades, shaping not only the American armed forces, but also influencing global approaches to small arms design. Eugene Stoner's creation had transcended its original purpose, leaving a legacy that would endure long after the final rounds were fired in combat. The rifle's story was one of triumph and tension, innovation and controversy. It was a testament to the power of human creativity and the enduring influence of one man's vision on the battlefield and beyond. By the mid-1970s, Eugene Stoner's AR-15 had solidified its place in history. What had begun as sketches in a small garage in Long Beach had grown into a weapon that reshaped infantry combat, influenced military doctrine worldwide, and left a mark on modern firearms design that could not be erased. Soldiers carried it into jungles, deserts, and mountains, relying on its lightweight, modularity, and reliability to survive missions that would have been unthinkable with older rifles. Stoner's creation had become more than a tool of war. It was a symbol of ingenuity, perseverance, and the power of challenging conventional wisdom. Generations of military strategists and soldiers would look to the AR-15 as proof that innovation could save lives and change the course of conflicts. Even as debates raged over its civilian use and ethical implications, its battlefield legacy remained unquestionable. The rifle's influence extended beyond the military. It inspired countless engineers, designers, and inventors to pursue unconventional solutions to age-old problems. Its story proved that one determined individual, armed with vision and determination, could create something that impacted millions of lives. Eugene Stoner, who had started with nothing but a name and a set of pencils, had transformed modern warfare and left a legacy that would endure for generations. The AR-15 was no longer just a rifle. It was history in motion, a testament to creativity under pressure, to the relentless pursuit of improvement, and to the profound ways one invention can reshape the world. From a small garage in California to battlefields around the globe, Eugene Stoner's rifle had changed the rules of war forever, proving that the boundaries of possibility are limited only by imagination and courage.